What if the world before the flood was not only a time of corruption, as the Bible tells us, but also an era full of mysteries, surprising advancements, and lost civilizations that challenge our understanding? What if ancient tales and modern evidence led us to a time when humanity reached an unimaginable level of knowledge, but at the same time fell into such a deep moral decay that it led to its total destruction? Today, I will take you to explore this fascinating story, where the supernatural and the human intertwine. Let's uncover what the Bible reveals to us about the days before the Great Flood, an event that marked a turning point in the history of humanity. But we won't stop there. We will also explore theories that have captured the imagination of researchers, historians, and truth seekers, from fallen angels and giants mentioned in apocryphal texts to possible advanced civilizations wiped out by a global cataclysm. This journey will help us understand a little more about that lost world. What made this period so unique, so dark, and so intriguing? Stay with me, because what you will discover will change your perspective of this ancient era. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you are enjoying my video, give it a like and let us know your valuable opinion in the comments. To understand the impact of that lost world, we must first immerse ourselves in the pages of the Bible, where a world is described that is not only corrupt but profoundly transformed by forces beyond human comprehension. What does the Bible tell us about this period? And how do ancient accounts and modern theories fit into this puzzle? To understand the world before the flood, we must return to the book of Genesis, specifically to chapter 6, where we are presented with a scenario as unsettling as it is fascinating. When men began to multiply on the face of the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. This passage is the starting point for understanding a completely transformed world. The Bible describes an era of moral corruption and rampant violence. The wickedness of man had reached such a point that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. The earth was full of sin, rebellion, and a complete disconnection from God. But what intrigues readers the most is the reference to the sons of God. Many interpret this term as fallen angels who descended and took human wives. Their union gave rise to a hybrid race known as the Nephilim, described as giants or powerful beings. Genesis 6 verse 4 mentions that in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of men and had children with them, there were giants on the earth. These Nephilim were not only physically imposing, but also represented a distortion of God's plan for humanity. Were these giants a direct threat to creation? The Bible seems to indicate that yes. His presence on earth, along with the growing wickedness of humans, marked a point of no return. This pre-flood world was more than a corrupt place. It was deeply influenced by supernatural forces that drove humanity towards its own destruction. The earth, filled with violence and chaos, became a reflection of a world completely distant from God. The Bible gives us a clear vision of the pre-flood world, but it is not the only source that sheds light on this mysterious era. The Book of Enoch, an apocryphal text of Jewish origin, expands the Genesis narrative and offers us fascinating details about what might have happened before the flood. In this account, we are told about a group of fallen angels known as the Watchers, who descended to earth led by an angel named Semjaza. These beings not only disobeyed God, but also interacted with humans in profound and destructive ways. According to the Book of Enoch, the Watchers united with human women and begot the Nephilim, giants of immense strength and power. But the influence of these fallen angels was not limited to the creation of these hybrid beings. They brought with them forbidden knowledge that transformed human society. They taught astronomy, metallurgy, the making of weapons, cosmetics, and the practice of magic. This knowledge, although seemingly useful, accelerated the corruption of humanity, fostering violence, idolatry, and rebellion against God. What is particularly interesting is how this story connects with the mythologies of other cultures. For example, in the Sumerian civilization, we find the Anunnaki, gods who, according to ancient tablets, descended from the sky to rule and teach humans. Similarly, Greek mythology tells stories of the Titans, beings born from the union between gods and mortals. These Titans were described as powerful giants, similar to the Nephilim. The presence of such similar stories in such diverse cultures raises fascinating questions. Could these stories share a common core based on real events? Although they are not part of the biblical canon, these traditions align with Genesis' description of a world influenced by supernatural forces and deeply corrupt. The connection between these stories and the Bible leads us to reflect on the impact of the Nephilim and the pre-flood society. Were these giants and their influence one of the main reasons why God decided to restart humanity through the flood? In almost all ancient cultures, we find tales of giants, imposing beings that seem to defy the laws of nature. In Norse mythology, for example, there are mentions of the Jotun, a race of giants who inhabited the world before the arrival of the gods. In America, many indigenous tribes, such as the Navajo, tell stories of giants who ruled the land and were eventually destroyed by cataclysms. Even some controversial archaeological findings, such as reports of giant-sized skeletons in the 19th and 20th centuries, have fueled the theory that these beings may have actually existed. In the biblical context, the Nephilim described in Genesis 6 and in texts like the Book of Enoch were not only physically superior, but also an elite that oppressed humanity. These hybrids, the result of the union between fallen angels and human women, would have used their strength and knowledge to establish their dominion. But were they simply brutal creatures, or did they represent something more? Some modern theories suggest that before the flood, there may have existed a technologically advanced civilization. Archaeological sites such as Göbekli Tepe, Pumapunku, and the pyramids of Egypt seem to be evidence of architectural and astronomical knowledge that challenges the capabilities attributed to ancient civilizations. Some propose that these advancements may have been the result of knowledge imparted by fallen angels, as recounted in the Book of Enoch. The possibility of an advanced civilization, led by giants who abused their power, gives us a vision of a world on the brink of collapse. Humanity, instead of using this knowledge for good, would have diverted it towards corruption and destruction. This context helps us understand why God decided to intervene. The flood was not only a judgment on humanity, but also a purification of a world completely contaminated by sin. The accounts of the flood are not only found in the Bible, but they also seem to be inscribed in the physical record of our planet. Geologically, there is evidence pointing to a catastrophic event on a global scale. The sediment layers found in various places around the world show signs of massive floods, with fossils of marine animals found high up in mountains, such as the Andes and the Himalayas. How did these remains get there if it wasn't due to a massive cataclysm? An intriguing scientific theory is that of the Black Sea deluge. Some researchers believe that thousands of years ago, this sea experienced a sudden increase in water caused by glacial melting, flooding vast areas inhabited by ancient civilizations. Although some consider it a local flood, its impact may have been significant enough to inspire universal tales of a great flood. However, physical evidence is not the only thing suggesting an event of this kind. Narratives of a flood appear in almost all ancient cultures around the world. In Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh describes how the god Ea warned Utnapishtim of a flood to destroy humanity, ordering him to build a boat to save his family and the animals, a tale that bears striking similarities to the biblical story of Noah. The Hopi, a Native American tribe, also speak of a great flood that destroyed the inhabitants of the earth due to their corruption. While in Hindu mythology, the god Vishnu warns Manu of an imminent cataclysm, guiding him to build an ark and save humanity and the animals. The consistency of these stories across cultures and continents points to a common event in the collective memory of humanity. However, What distinguishes the Bible is the depth and coherence of its narrative. It not only describes a catastrophic event, but also explains the reasons behind it. The total corruption of man, divine intervention, and the purpose of redeeming humanity through a new beginning. In the midst of a world engulfed in darkness, violence, and rebellion, the Bible presents us with a man whose life shone like a beacon of hope, Noah. In Genesis 6:9, it is said that Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. In a time when corruption was the norm and morality had disappeared, Noah stood out as an upright person, someone who chose to live in obedience and communion with God. God chose Noah to carry out a mission that would not only save his family, but also preserve creation itself. The construction of the ark was a monumental task, not only in physical terms, but also in terms of faith and perseverance. Imagine the scene. A man building a huge boat in a place where it had probably never rained, saying that a flood was coming that would destroy all life on earth. How many of his contemporaries must have pointed at him with mockery or disdain, accusing him of being crazy? The Book of Jubilees, another apocryphal text, gives us more details about this period. According to this account, Noah was not only instructed to build the ark, but also warned his contemporaries about the coming judgment. However, as in so many human stories, the warnings were ignored. Humanity preferred to cling to its corruption and rebellious lifestyle instead of listening to the voice of reason and salvation. This contrast between Noah's faith and the corruption of his generation not only underscores his exceptional character, but also the weight of his decision. He had no tangible proof that a flood was coming, but he trusted in the words of God. Each hammer strike he made while building the ark was a declaration of his faith, a concrete action in response to the promise of a just and merciful God. Noah's faithfulness and unwavering dedication inspire us to reflect on what it means to walk with God in the midst of opposition. But now, the story moves towards the point of no return, the flood. The flood, as recounted in the Bible, is one of the most debated stories in human history. According to Genesis, it was a global event that covered the entire earth and destroyed all living beings, except for those protected in Noah's Ark. But how do we interpret this cataclysm? Was it really global in its scope, or could it have been a series of interconnected local events with a worldwide impact? From a scientific perspective, there are several theories about how an event of such magnitude could have occurred. Some researchers suggest that it could have been a combination of extreme natural phenomena. Massive volcanic eruptions could have triggered torrential rains by releasing immense amounts of water vapor into the atmosphere. Others suggest that the impact of a comet or asteroid in the oceans could have generated gigantic waves and destabilized the planet's climate patterns. Moreover, there is talk of the end of the last ice age, which could have caused a massive melting of the polar ice caps, rapidly raising sea levels and triggering devastating floods. However, from a biblical perspective, the flood is not just a physical event, but also a moral and spiritual judgment. Genesis describes how evil and corruption had reached such a level that God decided to start anew. The flood was not simply a flood, but a divine intervention to purify creation and give humanity a chance to rebuild on a different foundation. The description of a global flood, which covered even the highest mountains, reinforces the idea of total and complete judgment. It is a reminder that rebellion against God does not go unnoticed and that his justice, although severe, is also accompanied by mercy. Noah and his family were preserved, showing that even in the midst of judgment, God offers salvation to those who trust in him. With the flood marking the end of an era, history now moves towards a new beginning. Humanity would have to rebuild itself from scratch, but not before receiving a sign that would mark an eternal covenant between God and creation. The flood was neither an accident nor a simple natural phenomenon. It was a carefully orchestrated event with a profound and eternal message. To understand it, we must look beyond the physical destruction and consider the spiritual purpose behind this catastrophe. God showed astonishing patience. He allowed Noah, a righteous man, to preach for years while building the ark. This time was not only an opportunity for humanity to reflect, but also a reminder that God always provides an open door for repentance. However, humanity rejected that mercy, clinging to its corruption until the very end. The lesson that the flood leaves us remains relevant today. Jesus himself warned in Matthew 24 verse 37, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." In the days of Noah, people lived without paying attention to God, ignoring the warning signs. They ate, drank, and married, focusing on their temporary pleasures, until the flood came and surprised them. Are we repeating the same mistakes? We live in a world that seems increasingly similar to the days of Noah. Corruption, violence, and a widespread rejection of spiritual truths. The story of the flood is a warning for us. It reminds us that God's patience is not infinite and that, although He is slow to anger, there will come a day when judgment is inevitable. But it is also a story of hope. It shows us that, in the midst of darkness, there is always an opportunity to be like Noah. People who choose to walk with God, listen to His voice, and live in obedience, even if the rest of the world follows another path. As we reflect on the spiritual message of the flood, we are left with the promise of a new beginning. After the judgment, God made an eternal covenant with humanity, sealed with a symbol that we can still see today, the rainbow. Throughout this journey, we have explored the various theories that attempt to explain the mystery of the world before and during the flood. Some have suggested that the fallen angels taught forbidden knowledge to humanity, which resulted in technological advancements, but also in corruption and chaos. Others speak of advanced civilizations that may have existed before the flood, leaving behind structures like the megaliths of Göbekli Tepe or the pyramids of Egypt. We have also considered theories of natural catastrophes, such as the overflow of the Black Sea or comet impacts, which could have been the spark behind accounts of global floods around the world. However, although all these theories provide interesting perspectives, it is the biblical narrative that offers the most complete and coherent explanation. The Bible not only describes the events of the flood, but also offers us a deep understanding of why they occurred. In its account, we find a world that turned away from its Creator, a world immersed in sin and wickedness. But we also find a God who, despite human rebellion, extended His mercy before bringing judgment, giving Noah the opportunity to save himself along with his family and preserve life on earth. More than just a simple tale of cataclysm, the flood is a story of redemption and restoration. The Bible not only shows us the gravity of human sin, but also the infinite patience of God, who always offers a way back to Him, even before His judgment arrives. Today, the lesson remains the same. God extends His grace to those who repent and trust in Him. The message of the flood is clear. No matter how far we have strayed from our Creator, there is always hope for restoration. There is always a call to return to Him. The question is, will we heed this call? Nowadays, we are still called to return to God, who always extends His grace before bringing judgment. Are you willing to listen and respond? The story of Noah reminds us that the time to repent is not eternal, but that we can always find forgiveness in the Creator who, through His patience and love, offers us a new opportunity. Thank you for joining us in this deep exploration of the history before and during the flood. And so we come to the end of this fascinating journey through the flood and everything surrounding it. But before we say goodbye, I want to know what you think. Do you have any theories about the pre-flood world or the flood that you would like to share? Maybe a different perspective or a personal reflection that has touched your heart. I would love to read them in the comments. This is just the beginning of an incredible journey. In Treasures of the Sacred, we will continue exploring more epic stories from the Bible, unearthing mysteries, lessons, and spiritual messages that remain as relevant today as they were in ancient times. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video if it has inspired you to reflect on your own life and relationship with God. Remember, this is a space where we can discover, learn, and grow together. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video. God bless you.